just finishing up, our first install practice. Normal week schedule, obviously Wednesday. Any questions?
We saw Kareem back out there today.
Yeah, so we have till Monday with his roster exemption, and then, when he comes up officially by Monday, if he comes up, someone else has to come down. So we're at 53 plus him, and then we'll figure out how we're going to handle it relative to this week and going forward.
Would you think P.J. Locke would still start Sunday at this
We'll
point?
see. We'll see.
But is there a world where Kareem doesn't come out this week, potentially?
We'll see. I mean, listen, it's been 4 weeks. All those things are possibilities, and it's still something that we're kind of going through relative to packages.
Sean, you talked about wanting to see some juice and body language on Monday. How do they check the box?
Good. No, these guys, I tell them to get away, and yet, they're going to come in, get a lift. They're going to look at tape. They're going to get treatment. And, I'll always talk with Dan, our strength coach, and Bo in the training room. And these guys they've been real good. They're resilient. I'm sure they're looking forward to getting back and playing at home here. And they know how important, this game is.
New England, even though they've won 3 games, they pushed Kansas City this past week. They beat
Pittsburgh. If you look, I just finished saying this, make sure we know the opponent. I can't, 7, 8 of these one-score games, just go down the schedule. And you just have to look at the tape. They're near the top of the league in every category defensively. They're first in the league in rushing defense, red zone defense, third down. I mean, all those stats that they make it difficult for big plays. They stay on top. I think they're near 1 or 2 in big plays given up. So they've been in a lot of close games, and I think when you watch the film, you can see that. You can see all of those things. Obviously, they've had a quarterback change, and we've got to have our best week of preparation to get ready for these guys.
What is it particularly do well in front defense against you guys trying?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, Bill's always, kind of been an Okie structure, odd front, but then gets in some even fronts. And so these guys will get into some Buffalo and play a true nickel front, but they can get in and out of some of their base defensive looks with a Buffalo personnel grouping. And so they present a lot of complications when you talk about protections and mic IDs, because they've got different players that can fit in these spots. So if I painted, a picture for you of a weak side linebacker, a Mike linebacker, and a Sam, but then in 1 minute the Sam could be, a safety. There's some unique looks that you don't see on a weekly basis that, we have to have a good week of being on the same page and understanding the front we're getting and the defense we're getting. That's the one thing that stands out. I think they're heavy inside. These guys will 2-gap. They do a great job of being strong at the point of attack and shedding blocks. And the other thing is, I think they're first in the league in tackling efficiency relative to yards after contact. They're extremely well coached and they tackle well.
What were your overall impressions just on how P.J. Locke did filling in for Kareem those last 4 games?
Yeah,
and before also.
Yeah, look, I think, man, there's been a lot of good things, and it's been a big part of some of the things we're doing. So he's done a good job.
Going back to that, you just kind of touched on some of it. Bill had Tom for so long, and you had Drew for so long that is part of the identity. But what's the hallmark of Bill's teams, even when Tom Brady's not the quarterback?
I would say this. Look, they're always extremely well coached and prepared. My first year in 2006, we were lucky enough to get to the NFC Championship game, and then when you lose that game, you get to coach the Pro Bowl. That's the old system. And New England had lost to Indianapolis, so the Pro Bowl was in Hawaii, and I had a chance to get to know him a little bit more. We had really studied a lot. That first year, you know, if you were paying attention to like, all right, who do we have to study? Clearly, New England was ahead of the curve relative to a lot of things. But the coincidence of just being a first-year coach and then, you know, spending a week and having a chance to visit with, and then years later we had at least 4 joint practices. There was no conflict. They were in the AFC, we were in the NFC. You know, there's so many things. But you know that you're gonna get a team defensively, offensively, and in the kicking game that's going to try to exploit your weaknesses. They're going to have a way to win the game, you know, and so and that's evident when you watch them on tape. They're very well coached. He's been consistent that way for so long, and so you know, tonight we do third down. You know, is Sutton going to be taken out of third down some way? I mean, we went there one year, and this was when Jimmy Graham was really, you know, having a breakout type season. And, man, there goes Aqib Talib everywhere Jimmy was, jamming him at the line of scrimmage. And, you know, we're at halftime, and Jimmy doesn't have a catch yet. And now you're out of your rhythm. And he's just really good at taking away some things that you want to do, or making you play left-handed, if you will. We've heard that before. And so it's always something different, you know, relative to what he sees on film and what he feels like he's got to do versus this offense. And so that's one of the challenges. And then offensively, you know, obviously they're on their second quarterback. They've had some guys in and out of the lineup. The tight ends play a prominent role in what they do. And he's a guy that I know values highly the kicking game relative to the vision for players. So this will be, you know, a good challenge for us. We're at home, and we have to have a good week of preparation.
Coach, to go off what you just said about taking away the number one person on offense, is that very unique for him to be able to do that
He's
with
just
other guys?
he's a little bit more, I would say, willing to adapt a plan suited for just that game, where some guys are going to play their defense and maybe there'll be some tweaks to it, but he might give you a different front and coverage look that you hadn't seen consistently. You know, he's not afraid to disrupt what he thinks your comfort zone is.
Whether it's game planning or in-game adjustments, how much do you relish then kind of figuring out, okay, he's taking this away, I got to go here?
Yeah, I mean, there's things even in the planning stages. If you start with Cortland, if we put him here, you know, what's our Cortland double beater opposite, you know, that kind of thing. That all of that has to go into, and you can see it in different opponents when they play. You know, when you could just see it if you look at the last 2 years and pick out a tight end or a receiver. You can kind of see what he's trying to do to someone else's version of Cortland, and so you just have to you got to have some answers, and you got to be able to see the safeties, and they give you snaps of pressure. They're not afraid to play cover zero. They're not afraid to rush 3 and play man and drop 3 underneath players. You know, that in itself is uniquely different. And so the communication and you know, the installs and the work at it is going to be important.
Given the way they keep.
But,
How much did Drake's injury impact what your vision was for the Titans?
It's a good question. I felt like it happened early enough. We were still growing and trying to figure out where we were going. It's hard to say, because if you don't have it, then you start going somewhere. You don't have it. And so now there's some things we've seen from Lucas that we really like, and man, I'm glad we have him. And so, you know, he's got an expanded role. But it's hard to say because it was just in those, I would say, infantile stages at the very beginning.
I guess it just, the numbers are like lower than you've had many.
To tight ends. Yeah, and look, I mean, we had Shockey, we had Graham, we had some guys that were uniquely different, Witten in Dallas. And so,
But that was kind of your vision for Greg.
yeah, I mean, is he a joker player? You know, that's right. That's right. And so, but you never get, like you've got packages and then they just kind of go back on the bookshelf, I mean, there's some things we try to do, and these other guys are receiving threats, and but I've been spoiled a little bit with some of those unique skill sets. Those guys are unique, and I was in New York with Shockey when we had him there and traded for him, and then of course we drafted Jimmy, and we're still developing some of that with Jaleel relative to that position at running back. He did a good job on a choice route the other night, down in the tight red zone. And so, but yeah, I think it shelves some stuff that we probably would have gotten into had he been healthy.
Given their desire to probably keep the score down, that's how they try to win games, do you have to really balance taking chances and taking care of the ball in the passing game?
Well, look, I think the ball security thing is critical. And we've kind of played to some degree with, a slimmer margin for error in how we want to play certain games. And so, field position, ball security, those things will be huge in this game. They'll be very important. You got two real good defenses, and so, I think you got to be smart when you get aggressive, and you got to also understand how the game's unfolding. Is it unfolding like you expected it to, or sometimes it unfolds differently?
How do you feel about Nick Dio's rushing level?
Good. Optimistic. I can't. It's going to be questionable for this game. He didn't go today, but man, I know he's feeling better, and so that's kind of day to day with an MCL. But I know he had a good first week of rehab and recovery, and so it's kind of daily. I'll ask Bo in the staff meeting, where we at, and then usually it's two players.
Coach Samaje averaged 6.2 yards last week with the Patriots defense and how good they are against the run. Do you think you'll try to incorporate him a little bit more?
Yeah. In fairness to that, and listen, he did a good job. We've got three backs that we're comfortable handing it to. A lot of it depends on how the game's unfolding. Of course, you see him a lot on third down, and then there's certain plays or packages that are designed for if it's tagged for him or for Jaleel. So, we'll see. It's like I said, the one thing that stands out is, man, you got to earn your runs, and so sometimes a 3-yard run you got to be happy with. They do a real good job of defending that element of the game. So, how his role fits, today we rested him, which we've typically done on Wednesday. But that'll kind of define itself as the week goes on. All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Coach. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.